for any 22-year-old, a young graduate, postgraduate coming out, it is a fantastic time to be here in India. A lot of previous generations, what they may have struggled with few things or would have been a challenging to achieve. Today, it can be taken for granted. So I think first and foremost, if you have the sensitivity that you are starting on a great platform, and hence it is your duty or responsibility, how do you really are able to leverage it?
The Sound of Money with Santosh Sirur.
Hello and welcome to another amazing episode of The Sound of Money. Well, today I have a very special guest joining in from Mumbai. He's Mr. Sanjay Srivastava. He's a strategic advisor, career CEO, and board director. In fact, he's worked for a Fortune 500 company and, in fact, been the CEO for the Mahindra World City business. In fact, established quite a few telecom and financial services business throughout the span of his career. Let's welcome our guest, Mr. Sanjay Srivastava. Hi, Sanjay, and welcome to the Sound of Money.
Hi, Santosh. Pleasure to be here. Thanks so much for having me. A big hello to you and all your viewers.
Most welcome. Glad to have you on this side of the screen now.
Same here.
The first question I have for you, because you have a career CEO. So, what kind of serious challenges do you think an Indian CEO can have, considering that his skill sets, on a global platform? Because India is really on out there, and a lot of companies again want to come on a much wider scale into India. So, what are the kind of serious leadership challenges do you see?
Uh, as they say, while they may be, that's a great starting question. As they say that every challenge is an opportunity.
Yeah.
So from that perspective, I think now that India is really the global growth driver and not just for its own. And last few years, we have been the fastest growing economy. There's a lot of interest for Make in India, for manufacturing companies to come in, for GCCs to be established.
Yeah.
Hence, when we have a conversation with the clients from potential clients and as well as the other international stakeholders, it's important that when you as a leadership, what you are representing, you are not just representing your organization,
Yeah.
but at different levels, you are representing possibly the country,
Absolutely.
various stakeholders, and then organization.
Yeah.
Because from a target organization, international organization, or a client, uh, at a overall level, India may be one of the contenders. So the first and foremost very key challenges, you should have a straight set of metrics which can really help you identify why India fits in very well into the strategic vision of a target company planning to have their
Yeah.
manufacturing organization. The second very big context, and it's become more prominent, is how that particular organization or their overall plans fit in into the geo-economic context.
Yeah.
Because now uh, geopolitics is the new way to do business.
True.
So hence a very fine understanding of how the organization's current plans are, where they are spread, and as well as what is the country to country chemistry.
Yeah.
The third, a very key challenge, which I always see it as an opportunity, is when any international organization, manufacturing industry, services, when they're coming in, they really expect a very sharp but a frank view on their challenges to come in. And India has worked significantly. You would have heard in some of the earlier talks with Mr. Kant and others, India has worked significantly in improving its ease of doing business.
Yeah.
But still, there are challenges for new business to come in and establish. Hence, the third most important thing is the stakeholders really expect an absolute frank discussion
Yeah.
on what are the potential pitfalls, and the more you are able to give a relatable answer and a realistic answer, is they will appreciate you for it.
Absolutely. So transparency is very, very key. And as you say, geopolitical chemistry should work. I think that's very, very, very important. Yeah. So, but Mr. Srivastava, where do you see India's economic development heading? The reason I ask you this is, whilst there is hope and optimism everywhere, are there any dark clouds on the horizon that concern you? Considering that India has had a very stable government, it's in a sweet spot when it comes to geopolitics. It's neither on the west or not too much on the east. It's somewhere midway, but it has to have that balancing act. So where do you see the economic development? Because exports are going to be impacted because of the slowdown worldwide. So what's India's key strength that you see?
Uh, sure. So on where India is positioned, I think now you really see is increasingly India is being recognized almost at the center of the developing world, and not just that, it is also positioning itself as a leader of the global South. So that's a great place to be there. From an overall roadmap over the next 5 to 10 years or even beyond, if you see, we have established ourselves at a great platform. We are talking about Viksit Bharat to come for India at 100. And therein are some of the key ingredients which we have to clearly focus on. First and foremost, we have done very good structural changes. We have done ease of doing business. We have got a series of policies like production linked incentives. So now the next level of growth to be maintained, it's important that all of this is synergized so that it really makes difference for companies to come in, to for private capex to come in and actually make the investment and grow. The second very big potential challenge is how do we, India also is recognized as a significant opportunity due to its demographic dividend. Every year for the next, I think, 25 odd years, the highest number of employable youth are going to come on India. And therein, I think the key challenge is that how do you really create manufacturing jobs? How do you really create the right skill set for folks who are coming in so they are employable? So thus demographic dividend actually really pays off. So how do we really use this? So that's a very big context. And the third context where India differentiates itself against some of the other countries is the huge consumption-driven demand for its own. So right from the last 5 years, when there's been an acceleration, and India was counted along with one of the ASEAN companies, Asian countries for competing with the China Plus One, the acceleration for India has been faster due to having a huge domestic demand and as well as then also acting as a base for exports. I think these are the opportunities. These are the skillful execution is where we have to be careful about.
Wonderful. My next question, Mr. Srivastava, is for the wannabe CEOs, the CEOs of the future. With that social media, there's so much of information, in fact, overload. How, as a CEO or an MD, one can really keep up to date and make contribution to one's own development and, of course, as a company and overall as a country? Because so much of information coming in, what's right, what's next, is so much to be thought about, right?
Yeah, that's a great point, and yeah, I think there are two sides of the same coin, right? So one is there is a huge hunger or need for information, and that hence a lot of information is being generated. Also, as digital becomes core, a lot more and more of information which even in the past existed is now available. At a strategic level, I think the key differentiator is how do you really focus on what is the most relevant information. So I think the first parameter for a future CEO or a CXO leadership is really to be clear, to have a bit of planning before you straight away hit the Google or now the Bing or the Copilot,
Yeah.
right? So don't start looking for answers. Maybe have a structure around what are the information points which are right now missing, and you really want to look for it. Second is also very clearly always have a framework of what is the framework or a strategic context in which you are looking for information. And building from these through to the next thing would be very clear that there may be actually be a lot of intelligence or a lot of information which may exist within your organization or within your teams.
Yeah.
So you really kind of almost crowdsource the internal information, also have a close conversation with your customers and prospects, because they will always be able to tell you a much more fine nuance of a future potential emerging trend. And then to amalgamate all of that, it's good to actually look at outside in
Yeah.
information.
Yeah. Yeah.
Otherwise, it's just like going into a rabbit hole. So you
Absolutely.
need to be focused on it at all times.
Absolutely. Interesting points and observations there, Mr. Srivastava. Can you share some of the most memorable and possibly also challenging situations that you dealt with in your career span? And, especially when it came to crisis management, firefighting, any interesting observations or any stories that could be a great learning for the one of these CEOs?
Sure. In fact, there are many, but maybe let me just pick up a couple of points. One, I'll give an example of when the Tata Group took over VSNL and we integrated it back.
Yeah.
So Tata Group was already foraying into telecom and managed services. It had just started its initiatives for few years. It was early start. And then we have put a very aggressive bid, and we actually were the winners in the PSU disinvestment, and VSNL came. And suddenly that was a moonshot moment, because suddenly in one shot we had access to at that time one of the mini Navratnas, which was VSNL, with a global standing, with a higher revenue. So we needed to really now figure out that how do we really use the existing core competencies of VSNL,
Yeah.
but at the same time, how we develop and ensure that the relevant services and the product market fit and the branding develops. So it really converts into a Tata Group company.
Yeah.
So the whole journey to convert or to transition and transform VSNL, utilize the best of its capabilities, look at the areas of efficiency, and
Yeah.
convert it into Tata Communications, which is now a global
Brand
behemoth.
itself. Yeah.
That was a very interesting aspect. Another aspect I would like to highlight, which has a closer connect with possibly a lot of people. Now everyone hears about it. 9 years of Make in India, and
Yeah.
how Make in India really has been a campaign. And I was fortunate enough to be among the CEO delegation which represented India at the first Make in India, the Lion launch at Hannover Messe in Germany way back in 2015. And while here you could see a huge branding, you landed up at any of the European airport hubs, everywhere there was a Make in India brand. But at that time, it was just a concept.
Yeah.
And then all the delegation, along with PM, along with Mr. Kant, and all the other leaders, when we where there in Hanover Messe, we saw the Make in India was the complete setup was actually part of one of the very large tents. And there were many other such tents which were,
competitors.
so that gave a lot of folks a context of what is it which you are trying to do.
And what
It's very
level?
bold, very ambitious,
Yeah,
but it is a very humble starting point.
absolutely.
And to see from there to almost a decade where now any global CEO over there while has Make in India their core strategy is
Yeah.
actually a very inspiring and wonderful journey to reminiscence.
Absolutely. You've worked so closely, just as you mentioned about the Make in India campaign, you've worked very closely on a certain key government initiatives. How is this private public sector, government sector, I would also say, participation panning out in the last 10 years, especially with the Modi government in place and, the participation of the private sector? We do see a lot of interaction, a lot of very active participation. In fact, there is always a talk where the private sector says that the government is 10 steps ahead of the plans, right? And there's a lot of aggression, which is amazing. But what's been your experience on the ground?
So I've had a fantastic experience, and what you said is when you really work on a hands-on basis on some of these strategic initiatives, which are not just strategic for an industry perspective, but has a greater country context and the economic context, you really see two aspects. One, you see the policy which is getting designed, what is the going to be the greater impact of that policy.
Yeah.
The second aspect which you also get sensitized is when you're working with the closely with the government and getting some of these policy inputs and sharing the view, you also realize the kind of complexity which we have to manage for India as a very large country. So it is possibly 100 times more complicated than the most complicated matrix running in any large organization. And you then tend to be more mindful and appreciative of how we have to ensure that there is a total stakeholder alignment and you have to get things done. So in that perspective, if the corporates are very clear on their objective from a business perspective and have a clarity on what is really missing, which needs to be done, the government can be a fantastic enabling partner. In Mahindra's, in fact, the first two Mahindra World Cities which we had were both JV partners with the state government, and they were among the most successful examples. Then same way when we work very closely with various stakeholders to design that what can be the post SEZ reforms. We that was a committee chaired by Mr. Baba Kalyani. I led the manufacturing sector reform recommendations. And the recommendation is also very heartening to see that all the government departments, both the political constituents as well as the bureaucracy are really appreciative and open to see how can we really work on a superior end result. So some of the most tangible ones where I've been very closely worked on is these new sector PLIs, the production linked incentive programs which have come in. One of the other recommendation we had said was that on a future basis for giving recommendations, we should link it to the kind of economic investment and the employment generation, which is also one of the points I highlighted earlier. And it's satisfying to see that the economic investment related incentive is now materialized into these 14 sector PLIs, electronic manufacturing, mobiles, consumer durables. They are some of the great success stories. And the second one, which has just got materialized, is in the latest budget, are the employee link initiatives. And in both cases, the government has very clearly defined that as a top key priority.
Absolutely.
So once you define that, then all the stakeholders get aligned.
Yeah.
And underlying all of this, I think one of the other ones which very closely I got an opportunity, and it was there's a fantastic end result, is in the idea of skill development.
Yeah.
So that's also something which is worked on. So we are a very large, a very complex country with enough stakeholders.
Yeah.
But if we are clear on how we want to work on a right business model, then PPPs can be a great win for all stakeholders.
Absolutely. Mr. Srivastava, you've been a a CEO and, of course, a board director. You've worked with various stakeholder, private participation, government sector. Globally, you got an exposure and experience. Can you share a bit on your life learnings from all this career that you've had so far? What's very key for a CEO material?
Wow.
I know it's a tough
So,
question, but
yeah,
I'm
I was
sure.
not expecting that, but yeah, that's the beauty of the host to get the best out. So I think two, three key aspects I see. One key aspect I see is when you're growing through the ranks, uh, you have to really get your hands dirty to know the processes and what is required to get the work done. Once you do it, then as you start reaching to or from middle leadership to the CXO leadership, two key aspects which count. One is what are the kind of horizontal capabilities which you have developed, which you will be able to take it even to another organization or another even domain which is totally unrelated. And secondly, how have you developed your capabilities in a vertical or an industry that either will take you to the same industry or can also help you identify the adjacencies. So I think that is the one key, very key aspect. The second key aspect, which is there, very important for leadership, but now it's in fact because of the great pace of change which is coming in is valid even for the junior and the middle leadership.
Yeah.
Is what I say is how do you really ensure you are able to learn, unlearn, and relearn on a continuous basis.
Yeah.
So you have to carry the learnings which are the most relevant, but at the same time, as new business models come, they may totally disrupt what you are doing. There may be challenges from totally other industries, like say what a simple QR code or UPI code has done to the banking.
Agree.
As so you have to totally unlearn from your previous models, and at the same time inculcate all of it and then relearn. So I think these are some of those capabilities which really hold good instead for people at across every level.
Absolutely. One last question before we leave. Uh, for a 22-year-old in India today, what would your career or life plan, advice be? Who is really pursuing the corporate career years ahead in life? What would be that one or two key points a 22-year-old should be remembering and keeping in mind?
Yeah, we can always give advice. Hope some of it they will listen to. Yeah. But I think jokes apart, I think one is The second aspect is there is so much growth and so many diverse aspects which you are coming on. So the first few years of your early part of career, you must pick up a piece about which one is passionate about, whatever you connect, because initially, while if everyone is coming out, there is a lot of peer pressure and on how many placements are happening or what is the median salary level. But I think the most important thing which you will only realize on a hindsight is if you will work in a domain which is really close to your passion and you are really passionate and curious about, it will give you the necessary skill set to later on leverage it, which you can work on. And the third aspect is a lot of people want to be the entrepreneurs. So if you want to be the entrepreneurs, it's always good to go and learn in great organizations, whether it is a startup or a large organization. And if you want to inculcate all these 2-3 things, it will position you for the next 30 or 40 years, as everyone is trying to increase the longevity. So I am very sure by the time the next generation comes out, how long they'll be working and enjoying what they do will be a much longer. So you are running a marathon. So pace yourself accordingly and have the right set of toolkits as enablers.
Absolutely. Very, very insightful conversations with you, Mr. Srivastava. Amazing. I guess a lot of learnings for the youth here from this episode, from your experiences, your interactions, yours with stakeholders, government sector, and a lot of learnings for entrepreneurs and would-be startups. Mr. Sanjay Srivastava, strategic advisor and career CEO. Thank you so much for being with me on this episode of my podcast, The Sound of Money.
Thanks so much, Santosh. Pleasure to be here, and best wishes to you and all your audience.
Most welcome. And well, with that, we come to the end of this episode of The Sound of Money from me, Santosh Sirur, and my guest, Mr. Sanjay Srivastava. Thank you so much for joining me. Bye-bye. Take care.
Thanks. Bye-bye.
The Sound of Money with Santosh Sirur.